Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and today we've got the 2020 Toyota Highlander Hybrid Platinum. This is the big dog of Toyota's large, mid-size to large crossover. It's a little bit smaller than the Sequoia, but bigger than the RAV4. Still has a third row of seats, and this is packing the hybrid powertrain paired up to a 4-cylinder gas motor. So this is going to be an in-depth review. We're going to check out the car a little bit here, walk around, look at some of its features, take it out for a drive. So it is windy here. Today is May 9th, and I didn't think I had any more filming to do in the snow, but sure enough, it was snowing a bit here in Michigan. It's horribly windy, it's chilly, and I was trying to get out of the wind a little bit here behind this building, and didn't seem to do a wonderful job at it. Nonetheless, let's focus here on the car. So I'm not a huge fan of the newly designed Highlander looks. I kind of think they've been going downhill progressively ever since the sort of early 2000s, mid 2000s Highlander. They've gotten a little bit bigger, a little bulkier, and this one just seems to be trying really hard with this sort of bird-like beak grille here, just a little overly aggressive. But I do have to admit, I like the stance overall. I like how it sort of tapers up, gets a little bit more narrow up near the top. It's a mix of aggressive and functional and capable. So pretty much from the front fascia back, I do think it looks pretty good. Nothing to complain about in the rear here. You do get remote trunk opening here. So that's nice to see, remote operated lift gate. In the back, no big surprises for a larger mid-size SUV. Do have this nice little underfloor storage that provides you your tools, very easy to get to, as well as, and I think this is pretty neat, a place to put this little storage protector. What this does, if you're not familiar, is apparently gets stuck. So this comes out, and then you could latch it in if your seats were down. Second row seats. Man, third row seats. There we go. If that were down, you could put this, I guess I'll just do the whole thing for you here, show you. So those go down, this comes back flat, and then you can throw this in here. Oh, or can you? Why doesn't that fit? Does it extend somehow? Ah, there we go. Look at that. That's some clever engineering. So put that in like so, bring it in, out, and voila, you can cover up your rear cargo compartment if you don't want people to be able to see what you got hiding in there. So I know it looked a little cumbersome, and it kind of is, but you got to realize this is my first time doing it, and I want to show you how nice it is that Toyota thought of a place to put it. There's a lot of vehicles, when you have your third row up, there's no place to put this thing. It's just kind of in the way. So even though it might be a little cumbersome to get it in there, I'm glad Toyota did that. Back here you also see this big old JBL subwoofer. That's part of the 11-speaker, 1200 watt sound system that this Platinum Highlander packs. If you want to see more on that, check the link in the description. We've got a full sound system review. But let's keep going here. So you got this third row that comes up nice and easy. You can even bring it back to recline a little, put these up, and there you go. Power that down. Now the third row is decently stuffy in the Highlander. It's not a full-size 3-row SUV like the Toyota Sequoia or like a Ford Explorer or Expedition, Chevy Tahoe, that sort of deal. So this third row is mainly for little guys and gals. But as a 5'10" adult, I can at least sit back here. I'm not particularly comfortable, but this seat actually reclines way back, and I could be back here for 20 minutes, half an hour or so, just a quick trip to somewhere. But you can see when this comes back, my legs are right up on it, not much feet room, not much headroom. I'm kind of stuffed. So I would probably do something like, let's see, if I were the only one back here, I'd kind of sit sideways like this. So not very safe, but it is an option. And you do have 3 seats back here, so you could do child, child, child. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seats in this vehicle. I really like this leather color, by the way. I think it'll age well. I think it's just different from your standard blacks and tans, or beiges, if you will. And that's really easy to do. I'm glad they didn't screw with making these seats powered. You just slide them forward, slide them back. Very chunky. The second row is a much nicer place to be for an adult. Got tons of legroom. This seat's set 5'10" position. Got my cup holders here that are grippy on the bottom, a nice grippy surface here that can come out and get washed for when kids get their applesauce all over it. Back here you've got 2 2.1 amp USB ports, so that's going to charge things very quickly, as well as a 1500 watt 120 volt like household style adapter. So you could put a laptop charger in there, DVD player, all sorts of different things. Nice to see. You've also got heated seats and climate control for the back. And a little bit of storage, cup holder business down there on the side. You also have this nice wood grain finish here. It's probably fake, but who cares? Looks good. And you have this little sunshade, so should you have little guys that you want to keep out of the sun, or you just don't want a bunch of sun on you while you're riding back here, or you want some sort of privacy, you can pull that up. There you go. Also got vents. This is important for someone with a car seat back here wanting to blow air conditioning on their child, so you can put the kid in either outboard seating position. The downside is there is no center seating position for a rear-facing car seat to be in the safest spot, so you do have to consider that when you're purchasing the Highlander. All right, up to the front. Pretty standard seat controls here. You do have an in and out lumbar control, as well as your standard front, back, up, down, recline, that good stuff. Very easy to get in and out of this car. The cockpit sort of brings up one of my complaints of the Highlander, and it's just very busy up here. A lot of the newer Toyotas seem like they're trying really hard these days to add in a bunch of tech, make things cool, a bunch of sweet features, kind of like a look at me, look what I can do sort of deal. And a lot of it does work well, but it's still a matter of there just being so much that you got to kind of suss through all of it, and they don't always, even if it works well, they don't always make it the easiest to use. So you can see there's a lot going on here, but let's sort of break it down. You got 3 USB ports up here, one of them for data transfer, 2 just for charging. Got a little bit of storage up here for maybe a device, although it's not grippy, so things are going to rattle and slide around. This is sort of semi-grippy, but it does go pretty deep. I had a tablet in there at one point earlier this week and put a lot of different sort of devices or storage of random stuff there. You've got a little bit more of a shallow one, but storage up there nonetheless. Standard glove box. And then in here, this is a softish, it's softer leather right here and then kind of a softer plastic here. You've got a wireless phone charging right here, and that's nice to see. It wouldn't fit the larger devices, iPhone Pluses and Galaxy Notes, but if it's a standard size device pretty well, starts charging up immediately. And then if you want that out of the way, then you've got a really deep center console here with a 12 volt charger, little flimsy removable storage tray, and then a bunch of storage. I would like to see some soft material down here. It's kind of a bummer that it's semi-hard. Things would rattle a bit, but not terribly. It's not like full plastic hard, it's just like sort of a softer plastic. I do like the location of this wireless charger as well, because your device is kind of out of your field of view, but if you want to see it and just check notifications or something like that at a stoplight, you can see it and then continue driving. It's not like way, way up out of the way, but it's also not in your face. Other than that, the rest sort of comes behind the wheel. So let's start it up. And this infotainment display is large and in charge, and I don't like it very much. The colors don't contrast super well. You can sort of see in the daylight here, hopefully, that you got a lot of grayscale going on, and there might be a few different themes you can choose from, but it's not the easiest to use system. This is kind of like the home menu right now. So we've got like an audio column, a map column, and an other column, if you will. So right now I have it showing me energy, but you can also have it show climate things, seat climate, more audio. So you got audio here and audio there. There's the driving statistics, like I said, and then you can also have like off-road statistics here. So for some reason there's a G meter on this Highlander, as well as stats for showing you what's going on with all-wheel drive. And then you press this button, and it sort of just cycles back and forth to different sides. So that's a little extra. The map is middle of the road. The graphics aren't quite as good as what you'd see on some other systems, but the responsiveness is pretty decent. I used the navigation a little bit, and it was definitely better at finding addresses and doing navigation than the Honda that I was in last week. But it's not quite as good as something from FCA, or who else makes the Kias. The Kia's new systems are really good, and then anything from the luxury makers is going to be better than this, although the Mercedes system is a bit more convoluted. Home menu. So you got a few different apps here. Setup screen. You can go in here. You got different remote connect things. You do have Wi-Fi in this car, Wi-Fi hotspot, so that's kind of nice to see. Audio works fine. You can go into source, and there you got your standard sources, and there's just kind of a lot of weird quirks as you're controlling things, menus, auto close, and there's no like very clear back button or anything. So it does have a learning curve that I think Toyota's trying a little bit too hard with. Like Ford's new systems, for example, they're a little clunky and not very responsive, but at least they're straightforward to use. The same kind of goes for the gauge cluster up here. You've got a lot of information going on. You also see a lot of that information duplicated in the head-up display. Like over here, you've got the charge, eco, and power sections of sort of how hard you're pressing the gas. I don't really need that up there in the head-up display, and maybe there's a way to get rid of it, but it would definitely require some digging in here in the menus. Let's see. No. HUD. So you can turn it on or off. Hold OK for detail settings. HUD driving support. Driving assist, is that what it is? Nope. Compass. Audio. Tachometer settings. Oh, here we go. You can so it is changeable. You can do a normal tachometer, or you can just put it blank, which is probably what I would do. But just for curiosity's sake, I'm going to leave it on tachometer. So that is customizable. So, to be fair, in Toyota's defense, it is customizable. You just kind of got to dig around in the settings. A lot of different things you can see here. Eco scores, digital speed readout, which is important. Fuel economy, which has actually been doing quite well for this larger vehicle. Energy monitors, tire pressure monitor, all-wheel drive settings, collision warning, all your safety settings. A lot of information, but a lot of people just want to get in the car and drive. So let's go. So as we get started here, I'm actually going to engage EV mode, drive around, drain out the battery a little bit. I know a lot of people like to have the map open while I drive so they can kind of see how that functions. So let's do that, and then I'm also going to turn off my heated steering wheel. I want to turn on engine powertrain specs there. So the driving aspects of the Highlander are probably my favorite thing about this vehicle. Toyota does a really great job with their hybrid powertrains, and this one is just as refined and efficient as any of them. This is a 7-seater SUV with all-wheel drive, plenty of capability, and I've been driving it around, not going easy on it, just driving it normally, taking off conservatively from stoplights and braking adequately, but also going over 75 on the highway and just driving it as I would normally drive. And before I started testing and filming, I was getting about 31.7 miles to the gallon, and overall, that's over probably a few hundred miles of driving, so that's really good. Now you can see I just crested 25 miles per hour, and that disactivated EV mode. So now the engine is working a bit to provide... Right now it's probably just sort of heating up a bit, calibrating itself Because at this speed, the engine could definitely be off and I could be driving on battery only, which is probably what's going to happen after 10-15 seconds or so. The ride is also really good in the Highlander. It takes a lot of the bumps well. It's not like remarkably smooth like a luxury vehicle or something like that, but it does absorb bumps really well. I like that they put a nice good profile tire on here. The steering's well weighted, and it actually gets a little bit heavier in sport mode if that's sort of your thing. I don't think I would ever be driving my Highlander hybrid in sport mode, but for those of you who like it, there it is, and it's probably pretty easy for the engineers to program that in. I'm going to get off the throttle here, see if I can get the engine to cut out. There we go. So now we're driving in EV mode again. Even if I go over 25 miles per hour, just the battery is powering the wheels. So you have your dedicated EV mode. You'd use that, say for example, if you needed to move the car out of the driveway or something like that, or just kind of pulling up to somewhere just briefly and you didn't want the engine to even fire up, you'd get in, start the car, and then press EV mode. Just drive it around slowly. But now it's in electric mode just because the car knows that I don't need that much power and it's got enough battery to do that. So like I said, I've spent quite a good amount of seat time in the Highlander over the last week. And I still haven't really fully gotten used to and started enjoying the way that the infotainment system works. I'm kind of indifferent about the gauges at this point. It just seems like there's a really high learning curve, and I know from experience of some people who have bought Toyotas regularly throughout their lives and then have purchased new ones, they're a bit frustrated with how overly complicated some of the parts of the vehicle are. And I think you definitely see that with this Highlander here. They're just trying to do a lot. There's a lot of different drive modes, a lot of different settings, a lot of different things going on in the infotainment screen, and it would kind of be nice if you could just get in and drive the thing and have your basic functions work simply. But in terms of how it actually drives, it's impressive. It's very standard fare Toyota. It's a $54,000 vehicle. And I think it lives up to that price. So you can hear now that we're up at highway speeds. This is a particularly loud highway. It's concrete and it's grooved. And we're driving next to a semi-truck here. But I'll get past this truck. There we are. But the Toyota is very refined, isolated. There's not a whole bunch of road noise, virtually no engine noise, and very little wind noise. However, there's something about the rear view outside mirrors that often make a whistling sound, and it almost sounds like the window's not closed properly, and that can get pretty darn frustrating because it'll be so quiet, and then you'll hear that little whistling sound come through, and you're like, really? But you do have adaptive cruise control in the Highlander, so it speeds up and slows down when you're coming up on another vehicle. You do have an active lane keeping assist, so you activate that and it'll keep you in the lane, not quite as well as some of the semi-autonomous features in like a Cadillac or a Volvo. And honestly, it's even still a slight step down from Hyundai's system, but it does better than Honda. There isn't much of that back and forth ping-ponging effect. And the only other downside is that it gets really mad at you when you even just come close to the line here. So I'm just going to leave it on for a little bit of our driving, and sometimes it detects imperfections in the road and yells at you, thinks that like cracks are lane lines. But I guess if you were particularly tired or just someone who was really, really concerned about safety, it'd be nice to have those beeps. The car does tell you speed limits up in the head-up display as well as on the gauge and on the infotainment screen, so it kind of shows you in multiple places. However, they're not often right. There have been plenty of times I've been on a highway that has a speed limit of 70 and it says 65, or I think there was one time I got up to on the highway and it was still saying like 25 or something like that. So It's not quite as accurate as some other vehicles, but it is nice to have as a sort of a secondary check fallback. It's just so good at driving around smoothly. I like all the premium feel of all the interior materials. I will admit, a lot of times I'm not a big fan of Toyota's interiors. I find them to be a little bit chunky, and the leather to kind of be too like overly mushy, and everything's big. The shifter's big, the steering wheels are pretty thick in Toyotas, the knobs, everything like that. But this Highlander does a pretty good job at making it feel premium and elegant while still kind of having that rugged feel. I like this material. I like that their use of chrome is minimized. Even this chrome is a little bit brushed, so it's not particularly shiny. So I'm going 46 miles per hour right now, just cruising down this road, and I'm going full electric. Seat comfort is also pretty darn good in the Highlander. I've driven it around few hour stints at a time, and I've stayed comfortable. They're a good bit of squishy, but also supportive. I would really like to see a plug-in hybrid version of the Highlander, and I'm sure something like that is definitely being considered, probably not too far off. Or even just a full electric if you could get enough range out of it. It would just be nice to not have to be so ginger on the throttle before that engine kicks in. But like I said, for it to drive so smoothly and be able to get in the 30s for fuel economy without even trying, really quite impressive, and it allows me to sort of overlook some of my frustrations with just kind of the layout and how things work, because I know some of that, a lot of that's personal preference, and more of that is stuff that you'd kind of get used to as you owned it. I just wish they could simplify the infotainment a bit, simplify the gauge cluster, just make it a little more intuitive. So all in, despite some of my sort of personal complaints with the Highlander, they've really done an excellent job with this vehicle. And if you need something large and efficient and solid, it's definitely a great choice. If you enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor. Drive on.